Hi and welcome to lecture 10. In the previous lecture we've integrated the Rails application with HTTP Party, but it looks kind of horrible, so we're going to add some basic styling in this lecture to fix that. We're also going to make the application more dynamic and allow you to specify a request parameter, because right now the data is always being pulled for GHU, but we want to make that dynamic and let you specify what you're looking for as a user. And we're going to talk about routing the route path. So before talking about the view and making the changes to how pretty the application is, it's a good place to talk about where is the view. So I mentioned before that we saw the elements that actually go inside the body, but we've never seen the doc type and the HTML and the body element. So it turns out that's located in the views layouts application.html.erb. So this is a layout that's specified, and each individual page gets displayed inside the body. So this way, you only get to write this page once, specifying what is the title of the application and which CSS files you want to include, and that applies to all of your views. Now you can override that. You can specify that this view should get this layout, and you could have multiple layouts, but I'm not going to cover that in this course. So what are we trying to improve? This is how a page looks right now. So number one, the border looks kind of weird for the table. Also, the padding for each field, for each column, really there is no padding, so it's very close to the edge. And also, all the rows are sort of the same, and it would be nice to what's called zebrify them, make them alternate maybe colors. So maybe make one white color background, maybe one different color background. So how would we do that? So that's where CSS comes in. And when you generate a controller, you get a file called the controller name.scss created for you under the style sheets directory. Now, SCSS is really not CSS, it's Sass, which we're not going to talk about in this course. But the good news is that Sass is just a superset of CSS. So it supports everything that CSS supports and more. So you could use regular CSS inside of your Sass files. So we're going to have three different rules, CSS rules. Number one, for the table element, we're going to say collapse the border. For the table column, we're going to say add some padding. And we're also going to have a class, an even class, which the background of that even class is going to be some color. If you're not familiar with CSS, specifically with CSS classes and how they work, do check out course 4 where we cover that. So now in our index.html.erb, what we have is we have an ability to specify, I guess what we want to specify is that every other class, every other row gets an even or an odd class. And you could do that with a cycle Rails helper. Basically, you specify that this table row should have a class, and the class should be either even or odd, and it's going to cycle through. And you could have multiple of these, not just two. You could have 4 or 5 classes if for whatever reason you want to cycle through many more values than 2. But in this case, I'm just cycling through even and odd, and every other row is going to get either even or odd value. So this way, every other row will have even class in it. And look at that. The border is collapsed, the padding is in place, and the table, every other row in the table is a different color. which is great. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to be able to specify the search term. The params hash in Rails is just the helper we're looking for, and it's basically just a hash that parses the value of a parameter and becomes either a symbol or key in the hash. If the key does not exist, the null is returned, which is the standard hash behavior. So in this case, we're going to be looking for a request parameter called looking for. Okay, so params looking for, if this value exists, use that as a search term. If not, use a default, which we're going to keep as JHU. That's what this is saying. So use the one found in the params hash, otherwise use a default. And actually, the only change we have to make is a change in the controller, because the model doesn't really care what the search term is passed into it, as long as there is a search term, and the view doesn't care which elements it gets back as part of courses. So in this case, what we're doing is we're passing the request parameter of looking_for equals Python, which goes to this params hash and gets parsed as Python, and now it's looking for Python, and then the courses you get back are the Python courses. If you don't specify anything, then it uses the default of JHU and you get the JHU courses. Now, right now, every time in our application we have to type in /courses/index, our application is really only dealing with searching the courses. So it would be great if we could just say that the default, the root path could just point to the courses controller and the index action. And you could do that by specifying in the routes.rb root courses index, which means that the root path to your application is going to go to courses controller and an index action. So now if we don't specify courses index, we just specify looking for, which is our request parameter, equals, I don't know, let's say diet, we get these courses. So in summary, minor CSS changes can dramatically enhance the app. Params helper is what you need for being able to extract the request parameters and use them in your Rails application. And it is very easy to change the root path by tweaking the routes.rb file. What's next? All right, the application is ready to go. Now we just need to deploy it to Heroku.